Our first reading this morning is from Isaiah 2, verses 1 through 5. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, said concerning Judah and Jerusalem, excuse me. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many people shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Our second reading from the New Testament is Matthew 1, verses 1 and 17. An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations. Here ends the reading of the Holy Word. Blessed be to God.
Dan, thank you so much for leading us into Advent. And Happy New Year. Yes, it is a Happy New Year. Did you have the ball drop last night? Did you celebrate? Well, some people might have, others not, but for a totally different reason. I'm not going into that right now. Happy New Year. Because with the first of Advent, we are starting anew. Because the church calendar is slightly different than the secular calendar. And we start the new year with waiting and preparing. And I know the kids can't wait. 4 or nearly 5 more weeks till the big, big day. Well, this 5 more weeks is nothing, let me tell you that. Because the people in the New Testament waited much, much longer. They did not only wait for all the candles to be lit at the Advent wreath, but they waited for years and years and years. Or as Dan was just reading, for 42 generations. That's a long, long time. Hundreds of years. Till finally Jesus was born. Well, shall we start? Let's start at the beginning. We read, thank you so much, Dan, for reading Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. And how do you begin? At the beginning, just as it says right here. An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. All the way back. And then Dan skipped a few verses, 14 verses in between. Not because they're not interesting, they're very interesting, but we would sit here for a long time hearing about who is the son of whom is the son of whom is the son of whom. And I just thought, get to the point, because go right to the end. What really counts is verse 17. All the generations are 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14. From David to the deportation of Babylon, another 14. And from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, another 14. If you add this all up, 42. Interesting. But even more interesting than all these 42 different generations are who is all in it. Because in Matthew's genealogy, we have 4 women plus Mary. Who are these women plus Mary? We have not just the ones you would expect, not Sarah, But we have Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, or as she is called, the wife of the Hittite Uriah. Why? What is so interesting about them? We could have Bible studies and sermon series about each of them, and you would find them fascinating because they're fascinating women. But not only that, and I know we still have children present, so I'm not going into details. However, I invite you to go home and to read, because all these four, besides Mary, have something in common. Not only one thing, but at least two. All of them are victims. All of them are used or abused or misused. Enough said. Read for yourself. Fascinating. And if you think the Bible is a boring book, you haven't read those stories. And they're in the Bible. And these are Jesus' female ancestors. Fascinating. Fascinating to think about these women, and not the famous one, not Rebecca, not Deborah, not Sarah, but the women we don't know anything about. As I said, my homework to you, go home and read, and you will be fascinated. But not only that, all four of them, besides Mary, they are not Jews. Tamar is a Canaanite, Rahab is a Canaanite, Ruth is a Moabite, and Bathsheba, or as she's mentioned here, the wife of Uriah, is married to a Hittite. Okay, why do we care? Why does it matter? Because that Jesus, who is going to be born in a couple of weeks, is born to all people, not just to the Jews. And we see that if we go through the genealogy and look at the background. Anybody here watching The Crown for the second or third time maybe? And you will see how important it is to have the genealogy. If you go way, way back, and everybody has to come from the royal lineage. Same with Jesus. Because here in Matthew's genealogy goes all the way to King David and to Abraham. We are staying in the line, royal lineage. Because for Matthew, it is important that Jesus is the promised one, coming from the background to fulfill the promises of the Hebrew Scripture. But one more. If you read further, and I'm glad you only read two verses 1 and verses 17. If you read next, does not only come verse number 18, well, that would be logical, but with 18 starts the Christmas story. And the Christmas story in Matthew is different than what we have here. In Matthew, we do not have any shepherds. We do not have any sheep. Yes, we have Mary and Joseph, but we get to that detail later. Come back is all what I'm saying. Come back. I feel like the trailer. Come back, and you'll find out more. Because this story is from Luke's story with the shepherds and the sheep. And why is that interesting? Not only because Luke has a genealogy as well, but in Luke, it comes after Jesus' baptism. I'm not giving you a lecture why this is all important, but in Luke, we don't go to Abraham, we go to Adam. All the way to the first people ever created by God. Because for Luke, Jesus came not in the royal lineage, but for Luke, Jesus came for all the people, for people like you and me with all the different background, and not just for the kings and the queens and the princesses and the princes, because Jesus is for all people. Okay, nice story. Why is this important? Anybody of you is on genealogy.com or watches any kind of genealogy or does any kind of genealogy? Yeah, I hear some nods. I've got right in here a Christmas gift not a Christmas, a wedding gift given to us more than 25 years ago. Starts all out, Tom and me on the bottom, and you can go back 5 generations till 1734, handwritten. And now, because thanks to the internet, much more information is available thanks to the internet. And some of this needs to be added, and we go on and on and on and on, even longer, not just 5 generations. And for anybody who has ever done any genealogy, why do we do this? Why are we interested in people who don't live anymore? Why do we go back to the parents, to the grandparents, to the great-great-parents, great-great-great-great-great-parents, even visit maybe the stones on the grave, maybe even finding birth certificates, going to different countries and visit how the places look like? Because these are our stories. They're not just names and numbers, but these are stories of people who somehow we are related to. And it's just not like any kind of, you put in a date and you want to go on. You want to find out about the people, how they lived, and what was important for them, what was important for us now, how did they find hope. And we pass on stories from generation to generation. I don't know about you, but any family gathering I'm at, there are always stories told from the past. Great-grandma so-and-so always told, oh, that potato salad recipe from great-aunt so-and-so, where generation to generation, we pass on stories. And sometimes those stories get elaborated just a little bit. Go bigger and bigger and bigger, like the fish which you catch. Goes this big, like some of these stories go on. And why? Because it is important who we are as people, not just in our own family, but in the Christian family as well. The series which we're doing right now in Advent is called From Generation to Generation, because we are not only stuck in the past, but we pass on what's important to us to the next and to the next and to the next generation. How do we do this? By intergenerational events. I love when all people, like last week, decorated the church, or when grandmas teach Sunday school to the grandchildren, or when we have families, different generations, work on projects like buying gifts for children who we don't even know for C&E, or how we have intergenerational events like on Thanksgiving Eve, just like on Wednesday, or on Christmas morning, New Year's Day, many, many other fun ways of when we pass on our good news. And I'm totally excited about the pageant when the kids teach us the meaning of Christmas. So we reverse it, not just the older generation to the younger generation, but the younger generation to the older generation, so that we can all learn from generation to generation. And why is that important? Because today we lit the candle of hope. And Desmond Tutu has a wonderful, wonderful quote. Hope is being able to see there is light despite all the darkness. Hope is being able to see there is light despite all of the darkness. And we all know that there's a lot of darkness around us. So we need hope and a little piece of light to go on, and knowing that our light and our hope is much more important, and that in Jesus Christ there is this light. Okay. What has it got to do with us today, yesterday, tomorrow? At the beginning of the week, just before Thanksgiving, after work, I went to the store just to get 5 items. You know, you only have 5 items you need for that big meal. Apparently, many other people had the same idea. And while I was passing these aisles, because every store is just a little bit different, trying to find my 5 items for that big meal, I heard a familiar tune. that tune. Did you hear it? It's not a Christmas tune. And wherever I went to the store, I heard that tune. It wasn't coming from the PA system. And it faded and was getting louder and softer. And I had no idea. And I was humming along with my 5 items in my hands, wondering what is going on. And while I was on the hunt to get the shortest checkout line, the other line is always just a little bit shorter, that tune was getting louder and louder. A little girl in front of me with her parents whose grocery cart was overflowing while I was there with my 5 items just behind her. And I was so grateful that I stuck in that checkout lane to hear that girl, must have been 2 or 3 years old, cute little pigtail and a bright pink coat, singing and singing and singing like it was a broken record. And I know her parents were getting annoyed. I'm not so sure if it was because of the repeating tune over and over and over again, or because it was the bill they had to pay at the end of it. And I came next, and I was telling that little girl, keep on singing. Keep on singing, little girl. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. Do you too? Guess how much he loves you. Guess how much I love you. I can tell. I can tell. Keep on singing, little girl, in your little pigtails and in your bright pink coat till the whole world will know, regardless of what other people are thinking.